Hayato was a brave but ugly weakling whose family was wiped out by aliens but somehow gained their power. Swearing he'll get revenge, he enrolls in the Hero Academy and hides his secret powers, but ends up using it to rizz up all the baddies instead. This story started years ago when Hayato and his friend got attacked by deadly monsters called savages. Despite doing everything he could to save her, he got knocked down and had to watch as she was infected by the savage before desperately trying to suck out the deadly fluids. Years later, Hayato is on his way to a special academy that trains students to wield anti-savage weapons called the 100. Luckily for Hayato, he has the highest compatibility score in the history of this world, which makes him a big deal. When he arrives, he hears two girls calling his name and immediately hides because, just like you, he can't think straight around women. He sneaks off to find the venue for the entrance ceremony, but a group of students suddenly surrounds him and begs for autographs, but he manages to sneak off again. However, just as he tries to enter the hall, a fun-sized femboy named Emile jumps into him and acts like they have been besties forever. After explaining that he is also a new student, Emile heads into the ceremony with Hayato. Minutes later, Council President Claire takes the stand to address everyone. But then the two chicks who were screaming Hayato's name walk in and apologize for being late. President Milkbags immediately decides to expel them for being late. But Emile gets pissed and tells Claire to stop abusing her power. After Claire explains that following orders is the difference between life and death as a slayer, Emile still argues that she doesn't have the right to just expel people. He then reminds everyone that Claire has no right to boss them around because Hayato has a higher compatibility score than Claire, which makes him better. This leads Claire to ask Hayato if he feels the same, so he puts on his big boy pants and also says she is taking it too far. The next moment, Claire challenges Hayato to a duel and promises to cancel the expulsion if he wins, but while Hayato hesitates, Emile accepts the duel on his behalf. After the ceremony, Emile takes him to see Char, a genius prodigy and head of research in the entire academy. After introducing her assistant Mei Mei, Char asks Hayato if he is in his right senses because he just challenged the strongest student in the academy on his first day. Surprised, Emile asks how she already knew, so Char introduces Lisa, a supercomputer that essentially runs and oversees everything in the academy. To help Hayato understand how cooked he is, she pulls up some footage of Claire's 100 and explains how she controls multiple blasters at will. Afterward, Char gives Hayato a variable stone used to store his suit and says its final form depends on the user's compatibility and skills. Minutes later, Emile takes Hayato to an arena to test out the 100, so Hayato activates his suit for the first time and is shocked by how good it looks. After Emile also activates his suit, Hayato gets surprised that he already has 100, but Emile dismisses it like it's no big deal. All of a sudden, he shoots Hayato with a powerful beam, and after managing to block at the last second, Hayato flips out because he didn't give him time to prepare. After saying that Claire won't give him time to think, Emile fires another shot, but this time, Hayato flies straight into the wall at sonic speeds because he can't fully control his abilities. Despite this, Emile can already tell that he is strong enough to win, so they continue training for the next few hours. Afterward, they leave the arena, but Hayato suddenly remembers that his sister, Karen, is in the hospital, and he had promised to see her today after the ceremony. He immediately rushes to the hospital, but Karen refuses to accept his apology until he kisses her forehead. As he then tries to explain how his day went, a nurse with the fattest pair of watermelons Hayato has ever seen walks in. Miharu explains that visiting hours are over, but Hayato forgets how to respond because his brain is still fixed on her massive jugs. Afterwards, he returns to his dorm room, but the moment he opens the door, he sees Emile about to put on some plot covers. Before he can apologize, Emile cracks his skull with a box, and a couple of minutes later, he wakes up in Emile's lap. Startled, he slams his head into Emile's and asks why he knocked him out, so Emile blames him for suddenly walking in while he was changing. After saying that this is his room, Hayato asks Emile why he is also here, so Emile says they are actually roommates before offering to fix his shirt. While he is at it, Emile accidentally pricks his finger. At this moment, Hayato recalls what happened to his friend that dreadful night and suddenly sucks the blood out of Emile's finger. Emile gets surprised by this but quietly watches Hayato while feeling butterflies in his belly. After patching him up, Hayato explains that after surviving a traumatic savage attack in the past, it became impossible for him to sit back whenever someone gets hurt, so Emil thanks him for the help. The next day, Hayato meets Claire in the main battle area, and they both equip their hundreds while the entire academy watches. While Noah and Liu pray that Hayato will be able to save them from expulsion, Vice President Liddy explains that they basically have to keep fighting until one person gets knocked out. When Claire suddenly says she won't be using full body armament, Hayato asks what that means, so she explains that she will basically be going easy on him because her full power would send him back to heaven. Just then, Emil connects to Hayato's transmission to give him support, and when another council member named Erica tries to complain, Claire tells her not to worry because a noob like Hayato obviously needs all the help he can get. With that settled, Liddy gives them permission to start, and Hayato immediately uses his super speed to charge into Claire. However, instead of landing a hit, he grabs her melons and squeezes to check if they are real before pulling his hand away and apologizing. After refusing to accept his apology and saying that no one has ever dared to touch her precious tatas, Claire unleashes a series of blasts and rearranges Hayato's guts with a nasty body shot before kicking him into the arena wall. As soon as he gets back up, she powers up for another blast, but Emil reminds Hayato to use his barrier just in time. Claire gets a little impressed by this, but after he charges in for a pathetic strike, she asks if this is all he planned to use against her. With help from Emil, Hayato charges up the sword for a second attack before taking off and releasing a powerful plasma-charged blast at her. Seconds later, the dust settles, and Hayato sees that Claire easily blocked it with her suit before suddenly getting blasted into the ground. When Claire gives him a chance to accept defeat, he pulls himself back up to fight again, but this time, she responds by summoning her Buster Cannon, an ultimate weapon that should easily obliterate a rookie like Hayato. As she powers up for the blast, everyone gets worried that Hayato will take massive damage, and Emil even warns him to dodge, but he suddenly loses control of his body and senses a strange power building up inside. The moment Claire releases the blast, he uses this strange power to block and gets close enough to cut her down in a split second. Claire quickly evades and loads up the blaster in his face for a second try. But after blasting him, she freezes in shock because Hayato just activated full body armament and is using an SS-level barrier to stop her attacks. Liddy and Erica also can't understand how he is capable of such control despite only having his suit for one day. The next moment, he charges in for the final strike, but Erica is not ready to be dethroned, so she also activates full body armament and sends a barrage of mini missiles to pierce through his shield. She then uses the final form of her Buster Cannon to finish him off. But after he passes out, Emil runs out and asks why she used full body armament after all that big talk about going easy on him. Char also enters the arena and reminds Emil that what Claire said is irrelevant since she still won according to the Academy rules. However, Claire admits that she lost by going against her own words. As a result, they decide to record it as a tie. Much later, Hayato wakes up in the infirmary and sees Claire watching over him, so he asks if Emil and the girls will still get expelled. After saying that she cancelled that order hours ago, she demands to know who he really is because no rookie should be able to deploy full body armament and an N barrier during their very first duel. Just then, Emil enters the room and immediately jumps in between them to protect Hayato, so Claire says she just wanted to apologize and heads out. While Emil checks on Hayato, Claire gets into a car with Erica, who then notices her mood swing and asks if she is upset because Hayato grabbed her milkers. Claire denies it, but Liddy also knows that she can't get her mind off Hayato, so she suggests going for a massage. The next day, Emil asks Hayato if he wants to visit the business district since they have nothing to do in the academy, so Hayato agrees, thinking it's just going to be a regular hangout with his roommate. However, when they eventually get to the business district, Emila takes him to get some treats and feeds him some of the cream, while the other students watch and wonder if Hayato likes taking back shots. Afterwards, Emil takes Hayato to a special lovers park, and just as Hayato suspects that he is actually a fruity femboy, Karen calls to check on him because she just heard about the duel. Minutes later, she shows up and immediately senses Emil's unholy intentions towards Hayatoso, so she tells him not to bother trying anything because Hayato loves Kitty. While walking around the district, they come across a broadcast of a pop idol named Sakura, and Karen immediately gushes about how she has always wanted to see her perform, so Hayato promises to get her tickets to the next show. Afterwards, they stop by at a cafe to get food, And as Emil tries to win Karen's heart with treats, Claire shows up. Karen immediately recognizes her and asks why the president of Melon Implants is stalking her brother. Hearing this upsets Claire, so she asks who the hot-headed vegetable is, and her assistant, Chris, explains that she is Hayato's sister. She then decides to ignore Karen and asks Hayato if he would be interested in joining a special unit of the council that allows high-level students to deploy for real Slayer missions. Upon hearing this, Emil says he has to join the unit with Hayato, but Liddy tells him to forget about it because they don't need a useless weakling on the team. Emil then challenges Liddy to a duel and summons a Dragoon-type suit, which surprises everyone. After Liddy also summons her suit, Hayato tells Emil not to use blasters with Karen around, so she changes her armament to a sword type, which also surprises Claire since a regular student doesn't have such a high-level suit. As they both clash swords, Erica tries to interfere, but Claire stops her to see if Emil is actually strong. The next moment, she gets a high-level alert and tells Liddy that they have to go because a savage has just appeared on the Zwei Islands. After Karen recalls that the pop idol will be performing there, Char shows up and tells Claire to take them along so Hayato can get his first real combat experience. Minutes later, they all rush into the control room, and Mei pulls up footage of 3 savages attacking the Zwei Islands before explaining that one of them is a Trenta class, one of the most dangerous forms of a savage. This makes Claire second-guess her decision to have Hayato and Emil on the mission, so she tells them to stay back. As she turns to leave, Hayato refuses to stay and watch while they risk their lives and the lives of innocent civilians. When Claire asks if he is too stupid to realize how dangerous the mission is, Char steps in and explains that Lisa was actually the one who suggested letting Hayato and Emil on the mission because it will be their best shot at keeping casualties to a minimum. With no time to waste, Claire reluctantly agrees, so they all get on a transport plane where she explains that Hayato and Emil are to take on the low-class savage only. Moments later, they reach the Zwei Island airspace, so Claire jumps out of the plane with Liddy and Erica. Using a missile launcher, Erica blinds the savage with smoke before deploying her 100 and using its chains to hold it down. Using this opportunity, Claire loads up the buster cannons and exposes the savage's core, giving Liddy an opening to land the final blow with her sword. With the first savage defeated, Claire orders Hayato and Emil to wait until the plane lands before they attack the low-class savage, but Emil suddenly pushes Hayato out of the plane. After they both deploy their 100, she suggests replicating the technique Erica used and blinds the savage with multiple blasts before Hayato lands a brutal hit with his sword. Unfortunately, he fails to expose the core and almost gets shredded, but Emil chops the savage's arm clean off. Hayato immediately tries a second hit, but still can't reach its core, so Emil uses an arrow-type armament to shoot it. While they celebrate their first savage takedown, Erica uses her chains to bind the Trenta class, but when Liddy charges in for the final strike, it slams them both into the ground. Hayato immediately decides to go save them with Emil, but Claire orders them to stand down and activates full-body armament to take it down. As she powers up her buster cannon, the savage also prepares a blast of equal power, and they end up countering each other. While trying to load up another blast, Claire realizes that her energy reserves are still depleted from the duel against Hayato. At that moment, the savage fires off another blast, but thankfully, Hayato manages to pull her out of harm's way. However, instead of thanking him, she asks why he always finds a reason to grab her melons. When the savage powers up for yet another blast, Hayato tries to dodge again, but Erica tells him not to move a muscle because the airport is right behind them and innocent civilians are still trying to evacuate. With seconds left to decide, they both combine their powers and manage to redirect the blast into the mountains. However, as they try to catch their breath, the savage attacks Emil and Liddy. When it rips through Emil's uniform, Hayato spots the scar across her body and realizes that she is the girl he saved that night. He immediately rushes in to protect her and says he remembers who she really is before the savage drives him through the roof. With Hayato out of the picture, it tries to attack Emil and Liddy again, but Hayato suddenly slices its arm off with full-body armament. While the girls realize that it's the same power that came over him before, he easily blocks the savage and starts losing his sanity. As he attacks the savage with a terrifying level of force, Emil tries to talk him down, but he ignores her and fires off an SS-level blast. The savage deflects it with its shoulder blade, and the blast almost reduces Erica to a bloody pulp. but Claire pulls her away just in time. However, Hayato is still losing his senses, so Emil decides to do the next best thing and kisses him mid-air until he regains control. After promising to explain everything later, she tells him how to channel his powers, so he charges up the sword and unleashes a plasma-infused strike that slices right through the savage. Once the dust settles, Emil hugs Hayato, but Claire interrupts their warm moment to ask Emil why she has melons and why she kissed Hayato in the middle of a dangerous mission. Hours later, they are back in the academy, and after telling Hayato that Claire has allowed her to keep dressing like a dude, Emil says they can't be roommates anymore for obvious reasons. Hayato then asks for the explanation she promised, so she starts by saying that he is a variant like her. On that night during the savage attack, she got infected, and he also shared that infection since he tried to suck the savage's blood out of her body. Usually, when regular humans come in contact with savage blood, they lose their lives, but in extremely rare cases like theirs, they become fully compatible with the 100 suit. This is why Emil came to the academy, because she had learned from Char that he had passed the compatibility test and would be enrolling as well. When Hayato asks why she pretended to be a dude, Emil admits that she wanted to be his roommate, among other reasons. She then explains that his berserk state happened because the savage virus takes over whenever his life is in danger. Luckily, she claims he can learn to control it with training. After thanking him for saving her life yet again, she offers to get him some tea. But as she walks past, Hayato suddenly collapses and ends up grabbing her melons. Emil gets shocked and initially thinks he wants to enjoy their last night together. But after recalling that it's a common side effect of the virus activation, she kisses him again and says it's the best way to neutralize it.
Yeah, boy.
The next moment, Claire walks in and demands to know what Emil is doing sitting on Hayato's magic stick. He tries to explain, but after slipping on Emil, he crashes into Claire and takes her first kiss. Hayato immediately moves away and apologizes, but instead of attacking him as usual, Claire says he doesn't have to say sorry this time. Upon hearing this, Emil accuses her of going soft on him and tells Hayato to kiss her again because she can't lose him to President Milkbags. Meanwhile, Sakura hops in the shower to get cleaned up, while her manager calls the academy to make a special request since they will be handling security for her concert. Days later, Hayato and Emil take on two students named Riisha and Fritz in a friendly duel. After one of Fritz's blasts almost takes Hayato out, he charges in to attack. But then Fritz reveals a second blaster he has been saving for this. The next moment, Hayato senses the virus taking over, but he manages to control it and smacks Fritz into the wall. Fritz immediately admits defeat and asks Riisha to get frustrated because she thought they would have gotten strong enough to join the Special Council unit for Slayer missions. After Emil tells her to focus on the fact that they made Hayato use full body armament, Erika calls Hayato for a meeting with Claire. Once there, Claire tells him that Sakura put in a special request to have him as her bodyguard for the concert. He gets confused and asks why she would want him, but the girls have no idea as well and choose to focus on the fact that there might still be savages on the island. Erika then explains that while 7 savages were spotted during the attack, 3 have not been found, which means they might still attack. After accepting the mission, Hayato asks for one special request before going to see Karen. Minutes later, she is shocked to hear that he will basically be beside Sakura the entire time and says she has always dreamed of seeing her. But then Hayato says she doesn't have to dream anymore because he got concert tickets for her. After thanking Hayato and celebrating for a bit, Karen warns him to be careful around women and water because she did a reading for him, and it doesn't look good. Days later, Hayato wakes up in the Zwei Islands and sees Emil sleeping next to him. When he asks how, Emil tells him to forget about all that so they can focus on enjoying the day together. Unfortunately, Hayato explains that his bodyguard mission actually starts this morning, so Emil gets a little bummed but still wishes him luck. After, he joins Liddy at the airport to welcome Sakura and spends most of the car ride wondering why such a famous chick would want a mentally unstable rookie as her bodyguard. When they finally get to her hotel, Hayato opens the door, expecting her to walk in, but she reminds him that a proper bodyguard usually checks to make sure the room is spotless before letting her inside. Hayato immediately apologizes and says it's his first time on the job before making sure the room is safe. Minutes later, she enters and suddenly asks if he would like to get married to her before pulling up footage of his savage takedown. After admitting that she became obsessed after watching him in action, she describes what their life would look like as the perfect idol couple. After countless attempts to stop her from yapping, Hayato suddenly agrees to everything and presses her against the wall so they can seal the deal with a kiss. However, Sakura gets surprised by his sudden confidence, so she runs into the bathroom to escape. Minutes later, she asks him to fetch her recorder because she just got an inspiration for a new song. While trying to grab it, Hayato decides to pick up the rest of her stuff. But then Sakura gets restless and comes out to ask if he has found it. After seeing her plot armor in his hands, she tries to walk back and accidentally slips on a bar of soap. Hayato immediately rushes in to check on her and receives an eyeful of plots. He then heads back to the couch and wonders if this is what Karen was warning him about. Minutes later, Sakura gets dressed and asks for his opinion, so Hayato says she is as cute as always, but she gets disappointed by his rookie-level pickup line and tells him to work on it. Much later, he watches as she handles herself during a press conference and commends her on being so social when she finishes. With that out of the way, Sakura takes Hayato to the venue for her concert, and after her manager, Souffle, explains their expectations for the big day, Sakura returns with a special uniform that makes her cakes glitter. Hayato immediately turns away to make her comfortable, but she tells him to watch and activates her 100 before taking off. As she flies around, Char shows up with Mei Mei and explains that she has a non-combat type that gives her the ability to create illusions and shields while bewitching fans with her amazing voice. After Sakura's manager notes that Char once saved her life in the past, Sakura lands and asks Hayato for his thoughts. Much later, he calls Claire to tell her how the mission went, and after she tells him to come see her in the morning, he returns to the hotel for a bath. However, after using his card to access it, he sees Emile inside and tries to leave, but she asks him to share the bath with her. Once he gets inside, she asks how his day was, but just as he explains how cool Sakura is, Emile gets jealous because he doesn't casually call her by her real name like that. After Hayato decides to start calling her Emilia, she stands up and tells him to look. He slowly turns around, expecting to see her kitty and melons, but she just wants to show him that her scars started healing after they reunited. She then makes him turn around again, but when he asks her to hang out before the concert tomorrow, she gets excited and tries to hug him, but he ends up grabbing both of her milkers. Around the same time, a bunch of variant slayers take down a savage and decide to save the rest of their plan for after the concert. The next morning, Sakura completely destroys her room in a desperate search for inspiration and ends up thinking about the time she spent with her mom. Meanwhile, Hayato finds himself in Claire's summer house, struggling to keep his magnum under control because he can't stop looking at her cakes. When he finally asks why she is dressed like Santa's little helper, she explains that the summer house is her go-to spot for relaxing. After noticing that he has been blushing this entire time, Claire decides to give him an eyeful and stands up before realizing that Erika unhooked her melon wraps minutes ago. Hayato immediately takes a mental screenshot of her melons, but then Liddy, who had also been watching, jumps out of the pool to erase his memory by force. Unfortunately, she slips on some lotion and lands with her snail on Hayato's face before Chris walks in and asks what on earth is going on. Minutes later, Claire tells Hayato that she actually called him because they received word from headquarters that an ultra-rare variable stone was stolen during the Savage attack. After explaining that Sakura was meant to use the stone for her performance, Claire tells him to pay extra attention since he is her bodyguard. The next moment, she challenges him to a swimming contest to redeem herself from the duel. But after Chris reveals the almost transparent Speedo he is meant to wear, Hayato quickly exits the summer house. Minutes later, he meets up with Emile in the business district and gets shocked to see her in a dress, so she explains that being away from the academy means she can finally be herself. After Hayato compliments her, she takes him shopping and makes him dress like a Disney movie Chad. After, he notices that she has been obsessing over a certain necklace and decides to get it. However, just as they are about to leave, Fritz and Riesho walk into the store, so they both hide in a dressing room, while Hayato is worried that being caught with her could ruin his chances of having the perfect harem. Emile gets excited to be so close to him and tries to get even closer. Luckily, Hayato manages to escape with his V-card still intact, and after they get to a park, Emilia leaves to get drinks. Right then, Claire calls Hayato to tell him that Sakura ran away from her hotel. She had apparently left Souffle a note promising to be back soon, but with the savages still out there somewhere, Claire tells Hayato to stay ready at all times and try to find her as soon as possible. When Hayato asks why she sounds upset, Claire admits that she has been watching his little date and asks if that is why he ran away from the summer house. He tries to apologize, but she tells him to make it up to her by taking her on a shopping date as well. After Hayato agrees and hangs up, Sakura snatches his phone and says she actually left to spend time with him. He is surprised that she could easily find him, so she explains that a tracker was actually installed in his phone so she can track him during emergencies. Left with no other choice, Hayato follows her into the car and sends Emilia a text apologizing for ditching her. However, he also makes Sakura call her manager so everyone can stop worrying about her. By the time Claire hears about this, she realizes that she now has to worry about more than Emilia's mini melons if she wants to claim Hayato's heart. Much later, Hayato and Sakura arrive at the island's Grand Canyons, and after taking him around the place, Sakura explains that she used to visit the canyons with her mom years ago. As they both enjoy the amazing view, Sakura starts humming a certain song. And when Hayato says his sister always hums it as well, Sakura gets shocked because it's a song her mom used to sing. She then asks Hayato for the name of his sister, and after he says Karen, she grabs him and asks if they were the siblings at a shelter during the second savage attack. Hayato says yes, and Sakura recalls that after losing her mom in the attack, she sang for them in the shelter, despite feeling insecure about her voice at the time. Luckily, they both loved her singing, and Hayato said her voice was amazing despite the fact that he didn't even listen to music back then. That one compliment gave her the confidence to continue singing, but after her estranged father found her, she got infected with a mysterious virus that took her voice away. After many failed efforts to save her, her dad sold her off to a research facility where she was injected with a special antivirus extracted from savages. Under the direction of Vitali, the lab's lunatic boss, she actually got cured and regained her voice, but the others were not so lucky. They were basically treated like lab rats, and while the ones that barely reacted to the antivirus were discarded, others like her were constantly injected because Vitali was obsessed with creating her own army of slayers. Sakura was the only one who successfully became a variant without major side effects, since she mostly gained the power to connect to people through song. Using this ability, she found a way to help the other endure the pain of Vitali's never-ending tests, but their numbers kept reducing until there was no one left besides her. Thankfully, Soufflé swooped in with help from Char and saved her from the lab. After listening to all this, Hayato reveals that he is also a variant, and this leads Sakura to believe that they are soulmates, so she decides to head back because she just got inspiration for an album of the century. Minutes later, they get on the bus, but just as Sakura tries to say something important, a savage attacks the bus. The civilians quickly evacuate into the nearby mountainside, while Hayato tries to fight it off on his own. Soon enough, Claire hears about the attack, and after pinpointing Hayato's location, she orders reinforcements, but still remains worried because Hayato has to fight on his own until they reach him. Moments later, Hayato realizes that he is in serious danger without his 100 suit because he can't keep up with the savage, but just as it powers up for another blast, Sakura deploys a shield to protect him and offers to help. Hayato thanks her for this and channels the rest of his energy into the sword before charging in and cutting right through the savage's core. Sakura immediately jumps on him to celebrate, and when Hayato reminds her that people are watching, she says it doesn't matter. Before he can respond, a second savage appears, and this time, Sakura gets overwhelmed by the power of its blast, so Hayato tries to shield her with his body. Luckily, Fritz and Riisha show up right then to support him, and after Emilia also drops in and takes out one of the savage's arms, she jumps in between Hayato and Sakura. As soon as the savage gets back up, Riisha forces it back with a massive blast to the face, and Emilia quickly takes out another arm. But after they all fail to reach its core, it starts regenerating. Seeing this, Emilia explains that they have to focus on the core, so Hayato checks on Sakura to know if she can manage without his protection. At this, Emilia almost chops his head off and asks why they seem so close to each other, but Fritz tells her to focus on the rampaging death machine. Riisha then launches a second attack and distracts it with a punch to the jaw before Emilia cuts off the savage's arms again, giving Hayato a chance to finish it off. However, Hayato gets smacked away before he can land the hit. As they all realize that its regeneration speed is almost instantaneous, Sakura uses the power of her voice to stop the savage from moving. Hayato quickly tries to seize the opportunity, but he gets attacked by one of the variants from the other night. Sakura immediately tries to wake him up, but another variant named Nesat uses a weapon copying skill to replicate Hayato's sword. Right then, the savage attacks again, but Kroven easily cuts through the blast while Nakri stops it from reaching the civilians. After cutting into the savage's core, Nesat continues stabbing it like a psycho, so Ryusha tells her to stop because she might get infected. Nesat ignores this and proceeds to lick some of the fluid, so Ryusha charges in to attack, but Nakri knocks her out. After she does the same to Fritz, Emilia takes over while Kroven attacks Hayato to see how strong he is. While they both continue clashing swords, Emil gets distracted, so Nesat disarms her, but she quickly changes her sword to a blaster that forces Nesat back. Upon seeing this, Kroven realizes that they are not fighting regular students and decides to retreat since Nesat already got the cores. After he takes half of it and says Vitali would be proud, Sakura realizes who they are, but they bail before she can ask questions. Hayato considers chasing after them, but Fritz says it's pointless since they barely have any fighting gear left, so they wait until reinforcements finally arrive. Much later, they meet up with Claire and Char, who explain that the variants they met are actually called hunters because they work for criminal organizations like the one Vitali runs. When she tries to tell them why they have been stealing savage cores, Claire tries to stop her because it's classified intel. But Char says there is no point in keeping it from them. She proceeds to explain that savage cores are very similar to the variable stones used in their suits and can also have a drastic effect on a country's wealth because they are extremely valuable. With that out of the way, Claire says she is just happy they got back safely, and when Hayato asks Fritz and Ryusha why they showed up in the first place, Emilia admits that she was the one who brought them since they were close to the scene. Claire then reminds them that it's against Academy rules to engage a savage without approval, but since they actually pulled their weight during the fight, she decides to consider Ryusha and Fritz's request to join the Anti-Slayer Council unit. Afterwards, Emilia and Hayato head out together while Sakura gets lost in thought as she wonders how the concert will go tomorrow. Much later, Karen tries to teach Hayato how to cheer for Sakura, but he suddenly gets a call from her and quickly heads to the beach. Upon seeing him, she tells him that the only reason people love her songs is that the majority of the human population is currently infected with the savage virus, and her powers basically tap into that to make them feel the depths of her music. She insists that this is the only reason people listen to her and starts bawling her eyes out. But then Hayato reminds her of the compliment he gave her in the shelter all those years ago. He reminds her that she didn't have powers back then and still sounded amazing. So she thanks him for getting her spirits up again and says she might get even more obsessed with him. The following night, millions gather to watch Sakura perform, and she completely blows all their minds with her 100 suits. After hours of her usual classics, she decides to sing her very first song from that day at the shelter, and Karen gets emotional as she realizes that she met her favorite idol before she became a world-famous star. While Char and Souffle also act like coked-up Taylor Swift fans, people from all over the planet remain glued to their screens as Sakura's voice enchants everyone. The next morning, Sakura finally meets her again and signs an autograph before suggesting that they sing together during her next concert. The next moment, she pulls Hayato close for a kiss on the cheek and bids everyone goodbye while they all mumble in shock. Days later, Hayato wakes in his dorm room and sees Sakura sitting on his glizzy, so he jumps back and asks how she is here. As she tries to explain, Claire walks in and threatens to arrest Sakura, so she clings to Hayato and begs him to save her. After Emilia also walks in, they all start fighting over Hayato's wood until he loses it. Weeks later, Hayato finally gets a break and decides to spend it at the beach with the ladies. Miharu also shows up, but that only makes him more excited because he can finally stare at her melons all day without Karen breathing down his neck. Sakura notices how obsessed he is with Miharu and plops his arm between her melons to remind him that he has a better option. But Hayato already has his sights set on a bigger target. To make matters worse, Emilia, who is still suffering from mini melon syndrome, gets jealous and tells Sakura to leave him alone. But Sakura ignores her and drags Hayato into the water. Minutes later, Emilia sees Claire dressed like every gooner's favorite wet dream and immediately accuses her of trying to deceive Hayato, but Claire acts clueless. Afterwards, Sakura decides to make lunch for everyone and uses that opportunity to make her vanilla buns visible to Hayato. She then meets up with Emilia and explains that she only joined the academy to make her dream of being Hayato's wife a reality. Upon hearing this, Emilia promises to make sure she fails. But Sakura gets curious and asks why she is so bothered by Hayato's romantic relationship since she is also a guy. After recalling that only Claire knows about her little secret, Emilia claims her friendship with Hayato is more important than a future marriage to the biggest pop star on the planet. The next moment, Karen joins in and uses her power as Hayato's sister to win the argument over which relationship is more important. Minutes later, Erica and Liddy start a sunscreen applying contest to see who can lather up Claire's body the best. And for some reason, Hayato finds himself stuck between Claire's milkers. Just as he manages to pull himself out of her black hole, a chopper arrives carrying an angelic-looking Chad named Judar, who turns out to be Claire's brother and head of Warslan, the company in charge of the academy. He tries to greet Claire, but she snaps back with a brutally cold response. So he shifts his focus to Hayato and commends him on having a better 100 compatibility score than Claire. With that said, he asks Claire to follow him back to headquarters for something important. Several days later, Claire summons everyone to her office and explains that a special unit has been created to deal with savage attacks, and they will be joining. Fritz and Riisha get confused since they have never been called for an important mission, so Claire explains that their request to join the Special Council unit has been accepted. After a short briefing, they all head out, but then Judar shows up and asks Hayato for a minute to talk. Moments later, he takes Hayato down a classified elevator and asks if he knows how the academy always has a steady supply of energy. Hayato says it has to be the reactor, but Judar explains that the reactor cannot produce enough energy to power all their facilities. He then uses a special password to enter a hidden floor used to store a massive cocoon. After he takes a closer look and realizes that a girl is inside, Judar explains that she is Lisa, the one powering the entire academy, and also the first artificially created Slayer in history. As Hayato tries to process this, Judar drops another bombshell by revealing that Lisa is actually his and Claire's little sister. Before Hayato can express his shock, they hear a gun being loaded and see Claire about to blow her own brother's head wide open. Visibly irritated, she demands to know why he brought Hayato to this place, so Judar explains that Hayato is likely the strongest variant in the academy, which means he might be strong enough to wake Lisa from her coma. This also means that he should know who their most valuable asset really is. After joking about how he could be the Prince Charming who kisses her back to life, Judar tells Hayato to try waking Lisa with his power. Hayato hesitates, thinking Claire might aim at him next, but gives him permission, so he pours his mana into the cocoon. Unfortunately, he barely tickles Lisa, so Judar tells them that he plans to capture Vitali before she has a chance to attack them, or do something worse to Lisa. Claire then tries to ask him more about Vitali since it seems they have a history, but Judar ignores this and tells her to try bringing Hayato over for dinner with the family. After he leaves to start making plans for Vitali, Claire and Hayato head back into the elevator. After a couple of seconds of brutal awkwardness, she makes him promise to keep what happened between the two of them. Much later, Hayato joins the rest of the team for their first anti-savage mission, and after a short briefing from Liddy and Erica, they arrive at a specialized army camp in a different district. The next moment, a girl named Claudia slams into Emilia and calls her a princess, but Emilia stops her from talking to preserve her secret. Despite this, Claudia introduces herself as part of the Federation of Britannia and continues asking Emilia to come back home. So Hayato asks what she is talking about. Claudia gives him the stink eye for interrupting their conversation, but Emilia decides to let her reveal the whole truth. Claudia then explains that Emilia is actually a princess from the British Empire and insists that she has to come back home, but Emilia refuses because risking her life for a chance to ride Hayato's glizzy is all she cares about. This causes Claudia to flip out, so she challenges Hayato to a duel to prove that he is worthless. Hayato initially thinks she is just yapping, but just a couple of minutes later, they end up in a dojo. As soon as the dojo master gives the signal, Claudia unleashes every skill she has ever mastered to defeat Hayato, but he easily knocks her out, so Emilia celebrates his victory and ignores Claudia's pleas for her to come back home. Later that night, Emilia takes Hayato out for a walk, and while they chat, Krovan and his girls stalk them. The following day, they all get one last briefing about the mission, and after being assigned to their various teams, Emilia gets upset that Claudia is on the same team with her and Hayato. Claudia, on the other hand, is excited since she can continue convincing Emilia to return to Britannia. She also challenges Hayato to another battle of skills to see who is the strongest between them. This causes Claire to realize that Claudia could become a problem during the mission. So she tells Claudia to ease up on Hayato, so she doesn't send everyone to an early grave. She also tells her to forget about taking Amelia away because the Academy now sees her as a valuable asset. With that out of the way, they head out for the mission, and Claire wastes no time eliminating multiple savages on sight. Amelia then tells Hayato to keep up so they can take a couple of savages down as well. But Claudia swoops in to steal the spotlight and gives Amelia an opening to take down a savage. She immediately tells Amelia that she is way better than Hayato, but Amelia simply doesn't care. Erica then runs a quick scan on the surrounding area to see if there are any savages left. After this, she gives Claire the green light to give more orders, so Claire suggests moving to a new location. While Hayato uses the opportunity to feast his eyes on her cakes, Orphan and his crew continue stalking them. Around the same time, Fritz watches as Riisha, another slayer named Ally, easily takes another savage down. He then dismisses the tingling sensation in his Excalibur to tell them to save energy since they still have a long way to go. Much later, Hayato and the girls return to base, and when Claudia starts yapping about him being a useless weakling again, he calmly accepts it. Surprisingly, Amelia falls even harder as she never expected him to be so humble. After Erica tells them to expect some rain soon, Claire decides to split everyone up into teams for the mission, and Amelia immediately tries to stay with Hayato. Claire refuses, stating that Hayato can't be with someone who only cares about his glizzy. Claudia immediately supports her decision, so Hayato ends up with her and Claire, while Amelia ends up taking the first shift with Erica. Later that night, Erica returns to give an update on what they found while patrolling, and after she completes the report, Claire decides to take over. As she starts chatting with Hayato, Claudia senses the tension between them and offers to stay back while they go scout the surrounding woods. She claims it's the best way to keep everyone safe and also suggests that they treat it like a date, but Claire immediately says she is only thinking about the mission. While they both head deeper into the woods, Claudia stays back and prays that they get freaked out so she can finally show Amelia that Hayato is a worthless playboy. Minutes later, a savage appears, and because Orphan had secretly jammed their comms, Claire fails to get a transmission across, so they both decide to deal with the savage alone. With help from Hayato, she actually manages to defeat it, but the battle leaves her buns soaked in mud, so they head towards the lake. Meanwhile, Amelia has just tried to sneak into Hayato's camp, but after she realizes that he has already left, Claudia calls her out to chat and says Hayato is on a late-night date with Claire. After sensing the pain in Amelia's voice, she suggests going back home again, but Amelia refuses and says she is ready to fight anyone over Hayato's heart. By then, Claire has just slipped out of her suit and soaks up in the lake, while Hayato struggles to keep his magnum under control. To make his wood go away, he asks how the water feels, so Claire describes it to him before asking how it feels when his savage powers take over. After Hayato says it feels like literally going insane, Claire gets emotional and says this is probably how Lisa has been feeling this entire time. Lisa was apparently injected with savage fluids before even being born because their mother was a lunatic who desperately wanted to turn them into a living weapon. Years ago, during a savage attack, Claire got trapped and was about to meet her maker when Lisa used all her powers to release a powerful blast in an effort to save her. It worked, but Lisa ended up in a coma ever since, and had to be kept under close watch with the most advanced equipment available. As a result, Judar turned Claire into his puppet and essentially carved out her life's purpose so she would take over the academy as president and act as Lisa's bodyguard at all times. After saying that, she also wants to bring Lisa back at all costs. Claire asks Hayato if he thinks less of her for being selfish and over-demanding at times. After she says it has all been to protect Lisa, Hayato admits that he only joined the academy to get treatment for Karen, so she shouldn't feel bad about herself. Just then, he gets an emergency transmission from Fritz's squad asking for help because they are under attack. Claire immediately tries to leave the lake, but she trips on Hayato and gives him a face full of plot. After he finally gets a good hold of her milkers, she gets dressed and promises to make him take responsibility before they see a flare from Fritz. Claire then tells him to head back to camp while she takes off to help Fritz. By then, Nakri has just knocked him out, so Orphan tells Liddy to give up. But she refuses, so Orphan activates variant mode and shatters her ribs with a single hit. Just as he tries to take her 100, Claire shows up and easily blasts them back before apologizing to Liddy for being late. She then promises to spare Krovan and his girls if they give up information about Vitali. But at this moment, it starts raining, so Krovan tells his girls that it's their lucky day. The next moment, Nisat uses her variant eyes to create weapons powerful enough to target Claire's cannons. However, she quickly switches to the Buster Cannon, but Krovan dives in and knocks Claire down before she can release the blast. He immediately tries to finish her off, but Erica captures him with her chains. While Claudia and Emilia capture Nesat and Nakri, Hayato rushes over to Claire, who then gives Krovan one last chance to give up. The next moment, Krovan loses it and refuses to accept defeat before breaking Erica's chains. Hayato immediately clashes swords with him while Nakri tries to defeat Emilia. In seconds, Emilia strings her up on the wall and offers to spare her if she surrenders, but Nakri refuses, so Emilia delivers a devastating body shot that sends Nakri flying into the mountainside. Upon seeing this, Nisat replicates Claire's cannons to attack Emilia, but she easily evades them all and retaliates. Nisat then tries to replicate her weapons as well, but Emilia changes it to a sword and threatens to gouge her eyes out if she even thinks of it. When she tells Nisat to use her eyes for good instead, Krovan gets even more upset and says there is nothing good about the world. As he charges up more of his variant power to attack, Hayato manages to keep blocking every strike, but he also gets a glimpse into Krovan's past. Years ago, he was working as a slave in a mine along with Nesat and Nakri. In that time, they were constantly mistreated and forced to complete tasks too painful for fully grown adults. After enduring the brutal conditions for what felt like eons, they managed to escape, but had to walk across a dry and extremely hostile desert. Somewhere along the way, Nesat lost her footing and collapsed, which led to a severe eye injury. Luckily, they found Vitali, the psychotic researcher, who then promised to save her eye and also give them enough power to fight for their freedom. Back in real time, Krovan has just asked Hayato if he fights for a cause greater than theirs, so Hayato recalls why he started fighting and says he does it to protect the smiles of everyone he loves and to make the world a better place. As he also fuels up more of his variant power and unleashes full body armament, Krovan also refuses to accept defeat and continues fighting. Naturally, Hayato overpowers him and forces him back, but then he uses even more of his variant power and starts throwing up blood. Claire sees this and tells Krovan to stop, but he refuses and says he has to keep fighting for their freedom. Just then, a savage jumps out of the lake and sprouts wings before obliterating one of the campsites. Upon seeing this, Krovan tosses a bag filled with variable stones to Claire and calls for a ceasefire in exchange for them, letting him take the savage's core. As he powers up to attack, Hayato warns him of the danger of using so much of his variant power, but he insists on fighting and takes off. However, the savage deploys a powerful barrier that blocks his attack, so Krovan continues striking and using every ounce of strength left in his body. Everyone tells him to stop, but he continues striking the shield, because such a powerful core will finally be enough to buy their freedom. When the savage starts powering up for a blast of its own, Nisat tells him to stop, but Krovan continues fighting and almost gets turned into pixie dust. A last-second shield activation protects his body, but he still gets knocked out, so Hayato charges in and saves him. When Krovan asks why, Hayato reminds him that he is fighting for a better world, so Krovan begs him to protect Nisat and Nakri at all costs. After he passes out, the savage starts loading up for another major blast, so Claire attacks with the Buster Cannon, but she gets blocked. Emilia then suggests blasting it together, but Erica tells them to stop because a combined attack with every other Slayer in the woods would definitely break past the savage's barrier. However, with their radios still jammed, Claire asks Nesat to turn off their jamming device, and after taking one look at Nakri, who is still unconscious, she turns it off. Claire immediately calls Char and asks for a quick analysis to see if the attack will succeed, and after Lisa gives the green light, they all power up their cannons. However, at the very last second, the savage takes out some of the Slayers present, so their combined attack still fails to break through the barrier. Just then, Char proposes a new attack plan, but for it to work, Hayato has to kiss Claire and share some of his savage virus to make her Buster Cannon a lot more powerful. As expected, Emilia and the others freak out, and even Hayato hesitates, but after Claire says she is ready for anything, the savage starts powering up for yet another blast. With time running out, Hayato takes Claire aside for the kiss, and as soon as she feels his essence pouring into her body, she tells everyone to get ready. The next moment, they combine their attacks again, and after Claire channels the power she got from Hayato, they finally break past the barrier. Hayato immediately activates his variant power and charges in to deliver the finishing blow. But he passes out right after, so Emilia dives into the water to save him and decides to get her own kiss instead of pulling out of the water. By morning, most of the Slayers are passed out on a plane while Erica meets up with Claire to ask why Judar wants Crovan's crew back at the academy with them. Claire admits that she is also skeptical about them, but says it is likely the best course of action, instead of letting them return to Vitali. Much later, Char completes her checkup on Hayato and tells Emilia not to worry because he should wake up soon enough. After she leaves, Emilia decides to kiss him again, but then Sakura shows up with Karen and demands to know what she just did. Emilia immediately claims she saw something in his eye, and they both decide to accept her lies because they still think she is a guy. Just then, Hayato wakes up, and while they all explain what happened, Vitali realizes that Crovan and the girls won't be coming back, so she begins the final stage of her plan. During the fight against Crovan's crew the previous evening, Ally got knocked out by the flying savage, so her friend, Wendy, tried to help. But then she spotted another savage and realized that it didn't have a core. All of a sudden, she was knocked out by powerful sonic waves, and Vitali immediately proceeded with a major step for her plan. It has been a couple of weeks since then, and Hayato just returned from a vacation with the rest of the crew, so Claire asks if they enjoyed it. Emilia then says she brought back snacks for everyone, but unfortunately, Char has already digested everything. When Hayato asks about Crovan's crew, Claire tells him not to worry because they are still under constant surveillance in an underground facility. She then tells them that Vitali's lab was finally discovered just the other day, but she apparently escaped with all the important tech before they arrived. As a result, they plan to beef up security ahead of the upcoming festa they hold every year to celebrate the academy. Hayato gets confused since he has never heard about the festa before, so they explain that it's basically a festival that goes on for days to celebrate everything the academy has accomplished. After Sakura reveals that she will be performing at the concert with a secret weapon for the fans, Hayato asks what the weapon is, and she asks if he was deaf when she said it's a secret. Erica then proceeds to explain all the preparations being made for the festa and tells them to watch out for the cleaning robots. Much later, they all head to the runway to welcome the other Slayers, but Claudia jumps out of the plane and tries to assault Emilia with her lips. She also calls her real name again, so Emilia reminds her to stop yapping because everyone still thinks she is a random guy with a thing for Hayato. Moments later, Riesha and Fritz run into Wendy and ask about Ally, but Wendy claims she hasn't seen her since the mission. Fritz then thanks her for showing up and promises to help if she ever needs anything. As the day progresses, all the other students help with preparations for the festa, while Hayato and the other Slayers get ready for their placements. Much later, he arrives at the hospital and sees Sakura entering Karen's room. He follows her inside and is surprised to see Char with a whole production setup. When he asks what is going on, Sakura decides to reveal the huge secret, which is that Karen will be performing alongside her during the festa. Hayato gets surprised by this and reminds her that Karen is still a hospital vegetable, but Sakura says it won't be a problem because Karen apparently has her own 100 suit now. After Char assures him that Karen will be fine on stage, Karen admits that she feels a little scared about it. Hayato then decides to act like a big brother and encourages Karen before heading out. The next day, Claire announces the start of the festa, and while everyone else gets excited for it, Claudia flips out because she got assigned to the runway, which means she definitely won't be seeing Emilia. Around the same time, Crovan loses some brain cells to the size of Mei Mei's milkers, and after she leaves, he wonders how the academy can be having a celebration despite the risk of a savage attack. When Nakri starts saying they are definitely up to no good and points out the fact that they seized their variable stones, Crovan reminds her that they let Nesat keep hers because she needs it to function. While Nesat thinks back to how Emilia spared her, Nakri calls them both soft and reminds them of when Vitali said that Slayers were trying to take over the world. Minutes later, Hayato and Emilia finally get a break to explore the festa, but Emilia starts clinging to him a little too much, so he tries to stop her. Just then, they hear someone calling them and are surprised to see Riesha and Erica dressed like maids from the red light district. Erica immediately tries to explain how she got roped into it, but Emilia snags a couple of photos to show everyone later. Erica gets embarrassed and tries to stop her, but Emilia just continues taking even more. Moments later, they enter the cafe, and after all the other maids welcome them, Emilia notices that Hayato has been feasting on their plots with his eyes. She then wishes she were one of them, but Erica decides to make that wish come through. Hayato reminds her that they should be keeping her real identity secret from everyone, but all Erica cares about is getting revenge for the pictures Emilia took earlier. Several minutes later, the maids reveal Emilia with her new look and force Hayato to get close to her. In the process, he trips and ends up grabbing her melons, so the girls take countless pictures of them to spread across campus. However, while Hayato freaks out over the possibility of Emilia getting exposed, she begins to like the idea of having rumors spread about their relationship. Much later, everyone heads towards the concert venue for Sakura's performance, so Hayato goes to see Karen because she obviously feels nervous. After Sakura and Souffle show up for one last rehearsal, Judar shows up to wish the girls luck as well. Several minutes later, Sakura takes the stage and delivers an electrifying performance that leaves everyone mesmerized. While they all sing and dance, Wendy swaps places with a guard at the entrance and helps Vitali sneak into an important control facility, only to get knocked out and discarded like street trash. By then, Sakura has just told everyone a little backstory about how Karen inspired her to start singing, and after bringing Karen out on stage, she helps her get past the stage fright. The next moment, Karen activates her 100 and goes from hospital vegetable to plot heavy mommy before singing better than Prime Beyonce. As the concert goes on, Claire continues overseeing the festa from the control room, but then Chris tells her about a student they found unconscious. She immediately asks for security footage, so he pulls up a clip of the people who found Wendy. They ask how she ended up unconscious in such a high-level location, but all Wendy remembers is seeing the strange red savage with no core. Back at the festa, everything is still going according to schedule, and Vitali calmly watches with those massive watermelons you have always wanted to taste. Around the same time, Noah and Liu decide to head out for a break, but then they spot a robot bee flying close to them and initially think it's part of the festa activities or some sort of group project. Ryusha and Erica, on the other hand, can tell that something is off, so Erica captures the bee with her 100, but it suddenly blows up. Just then, Ryusha sees another bee heading to a power station, so she fires up her suit and destroys it. The next moment, explosions start going off all over the academy, taking out multiple power stations and stands at once. While Noah and Liu immediately start the evacuation protocol, Chris and Liddy desperately try to get things under control because multiple power stations across campus also went up in smoke. As Chris begins switching to the emergency power systems, Liddy heads out to help the other, and Claire tries to figure out the cause of the explosions. Moments later, Noah and Liu radio in to show them that it's actually the cleaning robots, so Claire orders Chris to shut down as many as he can. Just then, Erica dials in to tell her about the variable stones they found at the explosion sites, and Char, who just showed up quickly, realizes that Vitali is behind everything. Claire immediately orders all activities to be put on hold and calls every active Slayer to evacuate civilians. Around the same time, Souffle gives Sakura a heads up so she can stop the performance, but the explosions reach them as well. As people begin to panic, Sakura uses her powers to calm their nerves and promises to keep them safe. Back at Mission Control, Char finally sees the footage of when Wedney let Vitali in, and Claire quickly figures that she will be going after Crovan's crew, so she calls for Emilia and Hayato so they can increase security in the secret levels. Meanwhile, Erica and Ryusha are still at the festival fighting off the Mecha Bess while also trying to evacuate civilians. Thankfully, Liddy and a bunch of other Slayers show up to help Fritz, but with the entire academy in chaos, they have their hands full. During all this fighting, one of the Mecha Bees slips into the data center and starts corrupting some of the radar systems. Moments later, Claudia continues brooding over the fact that she can't be at the festival, stopping Hayato from getting close to Emilia. Just then, she spots an aircraft approaching and wonders why runway control is not sending out a warning message or identifying it as hostile. After it crashes into the academy, officers in the control room discover the corrupted systems, but it's already too late by then because a swarm of red savages emerges from the crash, and all the usual weapons fail to stop them. After taking a closer look at the savages and seeing that they all have no cores, Char explains that this must be why Vitali was going after savage corpses and stealing their variable stones. With no time to waste, Claire gives Erica and Liddy instructions so they can help get the situation under control. Just then, Hayato and Amelia show up, so she tells them to go make sure Vitaly doesn't get to Krovan's crew. At this same moment, the radar picks up yet another aircraft approaching, so the fire missiles until one hits the plane's engines. Despite this, it crashes right on the concert venue, and this causes civilians to get even more terrified. Just as Claire tells Hayato and Amelia about the replicant savages that came out of the first aircraft, a second wave emerges from the second plane and immediately starts cutting into Sakura's barrier. Within seconds, the barrier starts weakening, so Claire decides to go help them. But Chris stops her and says they need someone to take charge, or the entire academy will fall apart. Upon hearing this, Hayato decides to go with Amelia, but after Lisa also agrees with it, Claire gets scared of what might happen to them. However, after Hayato reminds her of the conversation they had at the lake, she tells them to be careful, but Amelia gets jealous and wants to know about the conversation they had. Char then sends Mei to check on Krovan, who had just started hearing the explosions. As he wonders what might be causing them, Nakri says it's definitely Vitaly carrying out her mission. Just then, Nisad reminds them that there is a festival going on, and this causes Krovan to realize that Vitaly is willing to sacrifice innocents for her cause. The next moment, Vitaly shows up and tells them the plan while handing over their variable stones, but only Nakri is excited to fight. Krovan notes that the Slayers are not as evil as Vitaly always made them out to be, and after sensing that he and Nisat are second-guessing their loyalty, she fries their brains with a sonic wave device. Back at the surface, Liddy decides to obliterate the savages instead of looking for a core, and everyone follows her lead, including Claudia, who is surprisingly excited to be in such a dangerous situation. Sakura, on the other hand, is feeling the direct opposite because the savages are about to cut through the barrier. But thankfully, Hayato and Amelia finally show up to help them. While he and Amelia plan their attack, Mei spots Vitaly and quickly dodges her bullets before knocking her out. However, the moment she tries to check on Krovan and the girls, Vitaly shoots her in the shoulder and asks if she is the android a person named Linny's maid. After saying that she is more than just some robot, Mei tries to stop Krovan and the girls from leaving, but he knocks her out. Moments later, Vitaly and Krovan's crew blasts their way into one of the deeper levels, and after hearing about this, Claire realizes that she is going after Lisa. The next moment, Judar calls to tell her that there is nothing to worry about, and when Claire tries to ask for his plan, he simply says she has to trust him. Around the same time, Hayato has just managed to knock down one of the replicant savages, but since they have no core, his attack proves pointless. Back in the facility, Nakri gets zapped by a security system and passes out, but Vitaly walks right over her and orders Krovan to do the same. Naturally, he and Nesat hesitate, so she tries to fry their brains again, but Mei shoots the remote and runs towards her while saying that Krovan and the girls are not her toys to play with. Pissed off, Vitaly starts shooting back and manages to hit Mei in the leg, but she continues shooting until Vitaly runs off on her own. With the mind control broken, Krovan decides to go after Vitaly, but after seeing the hole in Mei's leg, he gets worried. However, she tells them not to bother stopping for her because help is already on the way. Unfortunately, Vitaly has just found the secret floor where Lisa is being kept, but as she gets closer, Judar walks out to face her. She then points the gun at him and says she did all this to get revenge because he dumped her like a used napkin after giving her back shots and using her genius brain for his plans. Judar doesn't even bother denying and asks if she would come back if he promises to love her again, but Vitaly refuses to fall for his pickup lines this time. After she promises to show him just how weak the Slayers are, the replicants start emitting dangerous sound waves that paralyze every Slayer in the academy, making it impossible for them to fight back. Judar then commends Vitaly for being so thorough with her plans, but she gets tired of seeing him alive and starts unloading rounds at him and Lisa. After running out of bullets, she is surprised to see that Lisa has finally woken up and asks Judar how he pulled it off. He then explains that her attacks, paired with the power of Sakura's singing, are what led to Lisa's awakening. After Judar further explains that he masterminded everything from the start to create this exact moment, Vitaly loses it and starts shooting at Lisa again until she runs out. Just as she calls Lisa a monster, her face turns pale because Judar finally decides to use his gun as well. She immediately collapses, so Judar takes her hand and thanks her for being useful to him until the very end. In a shocking twist, Vitali admits that a part of her feels happy that she was helpful to him. After she passes on with a smile, Judar discards her body like street trash and tells Lisa that she should continue resting in the cocoon. But she refuses and says she needs to do something first. By then, one of the replicant savages has just knocked Emilia out, and as Hayato tries to stop it, he also gets smacked away. While the savage continues tearing through Sakura's shield, Lisa appears to her and says she can actually help everyone by singing with Karen. She then uses her powers to heal Karen's legs, and as both of them start a new performance, all the Slayers regain their strength and realize that their voices are blocking the savage sound waves. The next moment, Hayato activates full body armament along with his variant power before delivering a devastating attack that obliterates the savage. However, the excessive use of his variant power causes Hayato to pass out, so Claire asks for a quick analysis of his vitals. After Chris says they don't have anything to worry about, the savage starts regenerating its body. Before they can react, it powers up for a blast capable of obliterating the entire academy. But at the very last second, Kroven and the girls deflect the blast and manage to push it off the edge. Just as they try to catch their breath, the savage returns and knocks Nakri out. So Kroven tells Nisat to keep her safe before using his variant powers to attack the savage. After he manages to land several devastating blows, the savage zaps him with enough electricity to power the Eiffel Tower. Upon seeing this, Claire decides to go help them, but with seconds ticking until the next blast, Nisat decides to risk it all to save everyone. By the time Claire gets to them, she sees that Nisat used her powers to replicate the savage itself. She succeeds in defeating it, but then she starts losing her sanity to the overwhelming power of the savage virus. Chris then tells Claire that she will soon release enough energy to turn the academy to dust. So Claire powers up her Buster Cannon and plans to send Nisat to an early grave since they have no other options. Right then, Lisa appears to Hayato and says he has to get back up because Nisat's life is in danger. So he wakes up and asks Claire for some time to stop her mad rampage. Claire responds that they literally have no time to waste, but he manages to convince her. So she stands back while he starts pushing Nisat back and reminds her of the people she holds dear. Nisat hears this and starts to respond, but the virus continues infecting her mind, so she lashes out and tries to take Hayato out, all while also increasing in power level by the second. After Hayato blocks all her attacks, Claire realizes that Nisat is about to blow up and begins to second-guess her trust in Hayato. However, at the very last second, he finally manages to get through to Nisat, and after he reminds he that she is not a slave to anyone anymore, she regains her sanity and returns to her regular form. Krovan and Nakri immediately rush over to check on her, and while they thank Hayato for the help, Lisa commends Claire for doing an amazing job before returning to the cocoon to rest. Hours later, a fireworks show commences to celebrate the Academy's survival, and Emilia seizes the opportunity to kiss Hayato. He reminds her that they should keep her identity secret, but she stops him and says all that matters is that she always wants to be with him. After admitting that he wants the same thing, he kisses her again, but then literally everyone they know shows up and gets surprised to see them kissing. Since they all think Emilia is a dude, they get scared, thinking that Hayato has been a fruity femboy this entire time. However, after Claudia charges at him and demands to know what he is doing to the beautiful princess of the Gutenberg royal family, everyone asks for an explanation. Emilia then realizes that there is no point in hiding it from them anymore, so she admits that she has been pretending to be a regular student this entire time. While everyone else expresses shock over this discovery, Claire activates the Buster Cannon and accuses Emilia of performing unholy acts on school grounds before blasting both of them into space. Does Hayato actually want to settle with Emilia? Or is he just trying to get lucky so she can join his harem? Comment part 2 to find out. And don't forget to leave a like and turn on post notifications for more bangers recaps like this.